A cracked clay pot sits on a shelf in a village market. Water leaks through its seams. A thin trail of moisture runs down the side, pooling on the wooden shelf beneath it. Everyone walks past it. A merchant glances at it and shakes his head. A young mother picks it up, sees the fractures, puts it back. Nobody wants the broken vessel. But one old woman picks it up, turns it in her hands, and smiles. She runs her thumb along the longest crack like she's reading a sentence written just for her. She says she'll take it. That pot is about to teach you something that most leaders, most companies, and most people get dangerously wrong. We've been told that strength looks like standing tall, refusing to bend, never admitting you were wrong. The loudest voice wins. The most confident person in the room gets the promotion. Certainty is power. We absorb this message early. In classrooms, the kid who raises a hand fastest gets the praise. In job interviews, we rehearse answers designed to eliminate any trace of doubt. In boardrooms, the executive who hesitates is the one who gets replaced. But what if that certainty is a trap? What if the thing you've been taught to hide, the willingness to say, "I don't know," the instinct to listen before you speak, the courage to admit a mistake, what if that's not weakness at all? What if it's the most underrated form of strength that exists? To understand why, we need to go back, not to a boardroom or a business school, to a forest. In a storm, two trees stand side by side. One is an oak, thick trunk, heavy branches, roots gripping the earth like fists. It's been there for decades, and it looks invincible. The other is a bamboo stalk, thin, light, swaying in the breeze even on a calm day. If you had to bet which one survives the night, you'd choose the oak without thinking. When the wind picks up, the oak stands rigid. It fights the gale, its branches lock. Its trunk resists every gust, as if resistance itself were a virtue. The bamboo does something different. It bends, low, almost to the ground. The wind howls over it, finding nothing to grip, nothing to tear. Morning comes. The oak is split down the middle, branches scattered across the mud, its heartwood exposed and pale. The bamboo is standing, not because it was stronger, because it knew when to yield. That image, the bamboo bending in a storm, is the single best way to understand what humility actually is. Not softness, not passivity, not low self-worth. Humility is the capacity to bend without breaking, to absorb pressure without cracking apart. It is strength that has learned the geometry of survival. And here's where it gets specific. Researchers have spent years trying to measure this. Not with feelings, with numbers. Teams led by managers who scored high in humility reported 30% more engagement than teams under rigid, self-certain leaders. That's not a small bump. That's not a rounding error in a survey. That's the difference between a team that shows up and a team that cares. It's the difference between people who watch the clock and people who forget the clock exists because the work matters to them. But engagement is just the surface. Here's what sits underneath it. You're in a hospital. A nurse notices something wrong with a patient's medication. The dosage looks off. She checks the chart twice, runs the numbers in her head. Something doesn't add up. She hesitates. The attending doctor is known for sharp reactions. He doesn't like being questioned. Last time someone raised a concern, he dressed them down in front of the entire ward. She stays quiet. The patient gets the wrong dose. Now rewind. Same hospital. Different floor. A different doctor runs the team here. This one starts every morning with a simple phrase. He says, "Tell me what I'm missing." It's not a performance. He means it. When a junior resident flagged a concern last month, he didn't snap. He paused. He asked a follow-up question. He changed the order. And then he thanked her in front of the team. Not for being right, for speaking up. On that floor, staff speak up. They catch errors before they reach the patient. They don't wait for permission to think critically. The data backs this up. Hospitals where humility was actively trained into leadership saw 14% fewer medication errors. Not because the humble doctors were smarter, not because they had better training or fancier equipment, because their teams weren't afraid. Fear is the most expensive silent tax in any organization. It costs lives in hospitals. It costs millions in corporations. And humble leadership is the most reliable way to eliminate it. That fear, or the absence of it, has a name. It's called psychological safety. And humble leaders create it almost automatically. When you admit that you don't have all the answers, you give everyone else permission to bring theirs. The obvious pushback here is predictable. If a leader is too humble, too willing to listen, too open to being wrong, won't they hesitate when it matters? Won't they freeze at the critical moment? Won't they become doormats? And that objection isn't baseless. Managers who scored in the bottom 10% for self-confidence actually underperformed by 6%. So humility without a spine really does backfire. A leader who can never make a decision, who defers endlessly, who treats every opinion as equally valid regardless of evidence, that isn't humility. That's abdication. But here's the part most people miss. True humility isn't the absence of confidence. It's confidence with a release valve. You trust yourself enough to act, but you stay open enough to course correct. You make the call, and then you watch what happens. And if you were wrong, you say so. Fast, before the mistake compounds, before pride turns a small error into a catastrophe. Think of it like a compass, 4 points. North is awareness, knowing where you actually stand, seeing your skills clearly without inflating or deflating them. East is the willingness to learn, to be taught, even by someone younger, less experienced, less credentialed. South is gratitude, the habit of recognizing what others contribute, naming their impact out loud. And West is confidence, the ability to move, to decide, to lead when the moment demands it. The needle doesn't lock on any single point. It floats between them. When all four are in balance, the compass points to what you might call humble strength. Now, here's where the story takes a turn that most people don't expect. Humility isn't fixed. It isn't something you're born with or without. It's not encoded in your personality like eye color. It can be built like a muscle. And like a muscle, it responds to consistent, small efforts, far more than to grand gestures. A university ran a simple experiment. Students spent 5 minutes a day writing down one thing they learned from someone else. Just 5 minutes. Not an hour of meditation. Not a weekend retreat. A single sentence in a notebook. After 10 days, their scores on a measure of openness to learning jumped by 14%. 10 days, 5 minutes. That's it. The act of noticing what others teach you rewires how you see yourself in relation to the world. But the deeper shift takes longer. Around 8 weeks, something changes in the body itself. Heart rate variability, a marker of how well your nervous system handles stress, goes up by 15% during humble reflection compared to pride-focused thinking. The stress hormone cortisol drops, not because you're relaxed, because your brain isn't fighting to protect an image of perfection anymore. When you stop defending a flawless self-image, your biology calms down. The armor was heavier than you realized. And here's the piece that ties it all together. In a 2-year study at a major medical center, staff who practiced structured humility, things like peer feedback circles, daily reflection prompts, gratitude exercises, their burnout rate dropped from 42% to 26%. They weren't just better leaders. They were healthier humans. They slept better. They reported more meaning in their work. They stayed in their jobs longer. Remember that cracked pot from the beginning? The old woman takes it home. She doesn't try to hide the cracks. She doesn't throw it away or cover them with paint. She fills the seams with a kind of golden resin. And something strange happens. The cracks glow. The pot becomes more beautiful than it was before it broke. And it holds water again. Not in spite of the fractures, through them. The Japanese call this art form Kintsugi. And it is built on a philosophy that breakage is not the end of an object's story, but the beginning of its most interesting chapter. That's what humility does. It doesn't erase your flaws. It integrates them. It turns the breaks into channels for something stronger. But this only works under certain conditions. And this is where most conversations about humility fall short. In South Korea, nearly 70% of university students say humility is very important in a leader. In the United States, That number drops to 45%. Same trait. Different reward. Different cultural expectation. What earns respect in Seoul can earn suspicion in San Francisco. A European aerospace company discovered this the hard way. They assembled a cross-cultural team, 120 engineers from Asia and North America. The Asian team members practiced a form of deference, stepping back, letting others speak first, downplaying their own contributions. The North American members read that behavior as evasiveness. They assumed a lack of conviction. They thought their colleagues had nothing to offer. The project stalled, not because anyone lacked skill, because humility was speaking two different languages and nobody had a translator. The fix was surprisingly simple. The team introduced what they called assertion cues, brief, explicit statements layered on top of humble behavior. Instead of just stepping back, a team member would say, "I have a perspective that might help," and then offer it. The humility stayed. The clarity arrived. Within 3 months, the team hit deadlines they had missed for an entire quarter. This matters because humility isn't a one-size-fits-all virtue. It shifts its shape depending on the room you're in. In one culture, silence signals respect. In another, it signals absence. The skill isn't just being humble. It's knowing how to translate your humility so others can receive it. And this is perhaps the most underappreciated edge that humble people have. They adapt, not because they lack conviction, because they're paying attention. They read the room. They adjust. They make others feel seen, which is the single fastest way to build trust in any group, in any culture, in any language. Studies on negotiation confirm this. Negotiators rated as humble by their counterparts reached agreements 22% faster than those rated as dominant. Speed came not from pushing harder, but from listening better. 55% of C-suite executives now rank humility as more critical than raw intelligence for future leaders. Not because intelligence stopped mattering, because the problems got too complex for any one mind. Climate strategy, artificial intelligence governance, global supply chain disruption. These are not puzzles a single brilliant person solves over lunch. The era of the lone genius at the top of the org chart is ending. What's replacing it is something messier, slower, and far more durable. Shared thinking, collective correction, the willingness to say, "I got it wrong, help me get it right." If this story changed the way you see strength or softness, or what it means to lead, there are more stories like this waiting for you here. Subscribe and let the next one find you. A storm rolls in, the bamboo bends low, and when the sky clears, it's still standing. Not because it refused to move, because it knew that bending was never the opposite of strength. It was the proof of it.